Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Our Take, a podcast you can trust. I'm your host, LukeMan97, and today we're going to be discussing the very controversial topic of the Exon Valdez Oil Spill that occurred in Prince William Sound, Alaska. So, I know recently I've been talking a lot about these environmental things, like I talked about global warming a couple days ago. I talked about global warming in the last episode, and so the reason why I'm doing this, I'll just tell you guys, is that I'm actually taking like this science class that requires me to do podcasts every chapter, so that's why I've been talking about all these like science related things. But anyways, so basically, I'm just gonna give you the rundown on this. What happened was the Exon Valdez, an oil supertanker that was owned by the Exxon Shipping Company, which is, I think, like a fuel company or something, was carrying about 53 million gallons of crude oil, and it ran aground on Prince William Sound's Bligh Reef and spilled 10.8 million gallons of crude oil into the ocean. So that's what happened, and this was the second worst spill in the U.S. waters after the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And it says that the Sound's remote location is only accessible by helicopter, plane, or boat, and it made rescue or government industry response efforts difficult. And the region is a habitat for salmon, sea otters, seals, and seabirds. So the oil affected 1,300 miles of coastline, of which 200 miles was heavily or moderately oiled. So, let me tell you now about the rundown about what happened to cause this. And when they did the investigation, they figured this out. So, it says here that the captain was Joseph Hazelwood, and their third mate was Gregory Cousins. The second mate was Lloyd LeCain Jr. So, the third mate, Cousins, was on the bridge for about 6 hours at night and was scheduled to be relieved by the second mate, but due to the long hours the second mate had worked, he was reluctant to wake him up, and so he remained on duty. But in violation of company policy, he began to maneuver the vessel, and at the same time, the lookout reported the reef ahead on the starboard bow. So he ordered a course change as the ship was in danger. The captain was then phoned by the third mate, but before their conversation could finish, the ship was grounded. It says the ship ended up perched on its middle on a pinnacle of rock. 8 out of 11 cargo holds were punctured, which meant 5.8 million gallons of oil drained from the ship in 3 hours and 15 minutes. They attempted to dislodge the ship with its own power, but it could not be dislodged, and also it probably would have sank if they would have tried to get it off the reef as the reef was supporting it. Eventually they found out that the third mate had violated company policies by steering the vessel, maneuvering it too much, and they also found that the captain was widely reported to have been drinking heavily that night, but was not at the controls when the ship struck the reef. So they blamed the captain for not being more attentive to the ship, but then he accused the corporation of making him a scapegoat. And they said a 1990 trial charged him with criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, and piloting a vessel while intoxicated, but he was cleared of the charges. But he was convicted of a misdemeanor, negligent discharge of oil. So they accused him of being drunk, and I don't know why they accused him of being drunk at the controls, because he wasn't even at the controls when this happened. But I guess they were just making sure that wouldn't happen again. And it says here on the captain, by the way, I'm reading this from Wikipedia, but it says on the captain's page, there's a page actually on this captain, and it says that he left the third mate in charge of the bridge and a seaman at the helm. Oh yeah, and it says he gave orders for the third mate to return to the southbound lane in the traffic lanes at a prearranged point, but the ship failed to return to the shipping lanes because of the third mate's negligence of steering it. So it says the Exxon, the company, fired the captain following the accident. And it says during his trial, the prosecutors failed to convince the jury that he was intoxicated at the time of the grounding. But his own admission, Hazelwood, it says, which was the captain, drank 2 or 3 vodkas before boarding the Exon Valdez, which was the ship. His blood alcohol content was found to be 0.061. However, the defense argued that the blood samples were taken nearly 10 hours after the accident and were mishandled. So it says after he was charged of a couple felonies, but after 8 years of ultimately unsuccessful appeals. So he was unsuccessful in appealing his misdemeanors or whatever, but he started community service in 1999. And it says in 1991, the United States Coast Guard suspended his master's license for a period of 9 months. So I don't think he went to jail, but he did some community service. So that's about the oil spill on the Prince William Sound. And some lessons we can learn from this is to always don't ever drink and drive, so to speak. If you're on the job, don't drink. Stay sober, number 1. And number 2, if you're always follow company policies. Do not ever disobey company policies, because that just brings bad. As you saw there, it brought bad because the third mate did not follow the company policies. So always remember to follow policies and don't ever get drunk on the job. That's what you can learn from this. But this oil spill definitely affected a lot of creatures and a lot of water and a lot of coastline. So we can learn to be more attentive when we're working. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, like the video. Hopefully Diesel will be joining me for a podcast soon, and I hope you learned something from this.